Everybody's faced with a really big decision this fall, and who do they end up voting for president? Well, I'm Gary Johnson. I'm running for president of the United States. I hope to be the Libertarian nominee. If I am, I believe I'm going to be one of 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states. So I may be able to give you that opportunity to vote for me. Why vote for me? I think that a candidate has to identify the problems that we face. In this case, I think the economy is a real issue. I think the government of the United States is going to collapse, and it's going to be a monetary collapse. It's going to be the fact that our money isn't worth anything, and that's going to be because of the amount of money right now that we're printing and borrowing for every dollar that we're spending. So that's the problem. The solution is slashing government spending, and by slashing government spending, we save this country. We're left with something very significant, which is a country that stands for liberty and freedom, civil liberties. So I think you've got to identify the problems. I think you have to identify the solutions that go along with the problems. And then I think you have to have a resume to actually suggest that you'll doggedly pursue problems and solutions that go along with the problems. My resume is that I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and I've been involved in politics in 2 elections, governor of New Mexico and re-election as governor of New Mexico. I made a name for myself vetoing legislation, saying no to government and government spending, believing that for the most part it was just going to add time and money to what you and I as citizens had to do to comply with new laws, rules, regulations. I think I made a really big difference as governor of New Mexico. Good government was easy, it wasn't hard, and easy government started with looking at issues first and politics last.
What would you think about going to war without a declaration of war?
I do not think that we should be going to war without a declaration of war. I am a non-interventionist. I believe that the Libertarian Party stands for non-intervention. Let's not get involved militarily in other countries' issues. When the United States is threatened militarily, that's another story. But in my opinion, there are no military threats currently in the world against the United States. That isn't to say that we shouldn't be vigilant toward those military threats. So I like to draw a line between non-intervention, military intervention, and isolationism. I don't think we want to be isolationist. I think we want to take an active role, and that would be negotiation, that would be diplomacy, to bring about outcomes that really would have a basis in individual freedom and responsibility.
How would you have gone after Osama bin Laden? Would you have gone into war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan?
I would not have gone into Iraq. I said, let's not go into Iraq. We have the surveillance capability. This is going back to 2003. We have the surveillance capability to see Iraq roll out any weapons of mass destruction. If they do that, we could go in and deal with it. I thought if we went into Iraq, we were going to find ourselves in a civil war to which there would be no end. Afghanistan, I thought that initially that was totally warranted. We were attacked, we attacked back, and I think after having been in Afghanistan for 6 months, we wiped out Al-Qaeda. That was 11 years ago. We should have gotten out of Afghanistan 11 years ago.
Would you rather use a constitutional provision called a letter of marque or reprisal and send in small units to take out terroristic bands that are aggressing against the United States?
Yes, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
And cheaper.
Cheaper. It's focused, and it's focused against those that we really do have a beef with.
You're for ending the Department of Education?
For ending the Department of Education. I think that the number one thing the federal government could do to improve education in this country is just give education to the states. The federal government right now is giving each state about 11 cents out of every school dollar that every state spends. but it comes with 16 cents worth of strings attached. So I don't think we recognize that it really costs money to take federal money. If the federal government just got out of education, something the Department of Education established in 1979, this is not a new phenomenon. If the federal government just got out of education, gave it back to the states, 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice, I think that's exactly what we would find. We'd find some fabulous success that would get emulated by other states. We'd see failure that would get avoided for the same reasons, but Washington top down, Washington knows best. That's what has us in the malaise that we're certainly in when it comes to educational performance.
Other candidates think that we need to eliminate a lot of the cabinet secretaries, the departments that they're running. How many would you get rid of if you became president, aside from obviously education?
Well, I'm open to the discussion of eliminating any cabinet agency, but specifically I do talk about the Department of Education, Housing and Urban Development, Homeland Security, Agency Fannie and Freddie. Open to the discussion. I am promising, as President of the United States, to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. Now, that's not promising to balance a budget, because Congress is going to have to go along with my balanced budget, but that will document a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending now.
What about getting rid of the Federal Reserve?
You know, I would get rid of the Federal Reserve if Congress presented me with legislation to do that. What's the advantage to getting rid of the Federal Reserve? Well, it would be transparency. Could the Federal Reserve provide that transparency today? Yes. Should we be auditing the Federal Reserve? Yes. What we need to do is to stop printing money. If we got rid of the Federal Reserve, Treasury would still print money, just as they did before there was a central bank, just as other countries print money that don't have a central bank. So the real key is to slash spending with regard to the Federal Reserve, bringing transparency to the Federal Reserve, bringing the Federal Reserve back to its original mandate, which was price stability, which in my opinion is strong U.S. dollar, as opposed to coupling that with the dual mandate of full employment, which is weak dollar. And so right now we have a Federal Reserve, weak dollar, strong dollar. We're ending up with weak dollar.
What about going to a hard currency standard such as gold and or silver?
I like the idea. I think that when Reagan set up his how do we do this, how do we return our currency to a commodity-based currency, that he put together a commission made up Milton Friedman, Alan Greenspan, among others, that came up with a plan to how that would get implemented, and came up with a plan that they called competing currencies. So it would be repeal of legal tender laws, allowing for competing currencies to actually bring that about. And that's a study that simply just needs to get dusted off and looked at as to how we would go about doing that.
Lastly, one of my favorite issues, that is also one of yours, is the fair tax. Some people don't like it. I think most don't understand it. They probably have never read anything about it. Can you give just a brief summary of what it is and why you support it?
Well, I support the fair tax. I support a consumption tax. I support getting rid of the IRS, getting rid of corporate tax, getting rid of tax withholdings, getting rid of the IRS. The fair tax, which is a package, deals with all the aspects of converting over to a consumption tax. It ends up being cost neutral over a very short amount of time. So it's the answer when it comes to our exports, making our exports 23% more competitive. It's the answer to China, and it's the answer to jobs, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what kind of playing field you have to establish for them to do just that.
Thank you, Governor.
Great, thank you.